It's crazy when you type depression on YouTube and you happen to get so many different tools and different formulas and different, you've tried it and now you're listening to that video, so that means that you've been shopping around, which is what I do often. And yeah, it sucks. It sucks because everybody seems to know how to solve that problem. And I don't want to sound pessimistic, okay? But as a man in my early 30s now, I know that I don't know everything, but I know a little bit more than when I was 20, okay? And my feelings of depression and feelings of anxiety, social phobia started, I would say, when I was in my teens, 15, 16, and that's often the case. And since that age, I've been looking for answers as for why it happened. Why am I reacting that way? And am I crazy? And everything like that. But what I want to emphasize on is that I remember that I would just punch in the letters like depression on YouTube, and I would always find either these big documentaries by BBC or just like something that has to do with some service to buy at the end, or and opinions. So I think that my favorite ones were simply opinions who were shared by either professional but also by people like me who are not doctors, but they've been, and they totally know what depression tastes like. They totally know how it feels to be to go through such an extreme anxiety, and they know what they're talking about because they've been through it, just like a vet would know how it is to go through war. Of course, all of the soldiers are not harmed in the same level. Some are fine, some are really, it's physical harm, some are a little bit more like we are, unfortunately. It's more psychologic. It's more in our brain, but it looks a little bit like a trauma and a reaction to a trauma, which in my case I never found. Okay, there's these theories of maybe when you were born or whatever, the first thing that you felt. But I can totally relate to people who say, you know what, I feel that way, and I feel like such a loser because I just cannot go out without constantly worrying. It makes me sick, and I feel guilty because I feel like a loser. And my parents, and when you're younger, my parents think that there's something wrong, but you just don't know what it is, and you feel really like, well, in my case, I'm going to tell you, in my case, that's had and still has, when I go through it, a very big impact on my self-esteem, no matter what I'm going through, okay? So even if you happen to be a perfectly good worker, you can still function at a certain level, but your self-esteem is just like shit. I've been talking to people who are working into the modeling field, and when they go through depression or social anxiety, they don't feel on top of it all, unlike we see on Facebook status and everything. They don't feel on top of it all. They feel just as miserable as, the brain seems to be so complicated that it's really hard for me to say, here's what you should be thinking of. Here's what you should be doing. I'm sorry you didn't find a podcast talking about a very magical solution. I think it's a mix of different things, but we're also, I mean, the circumstances that you've been through are unique to you according to the factors and the timing of your life, as well as your own personality and your own brain and its way to cope with that it's really impossible. It's stupid to say, here's step number 1, step number 2. So this is why I created this channel, because even sometimes you're going to feel even more depressed after watching so many solutions and finding out that nothing is working for you. So what the hell is wrong with me? Even people are recovering when I'm such a loser that I cannot even recover. So that even gets you into some kind of anger. So this is what I talk about right now, is about guilt and how guilty we feel on top of being anxious or being depressed. But I'm just going to focus on depression right now. Depression has not been proven yet. I would say, like, as easy as they can prove Alzheimer through the brain or other diseases. Now, we know it's a fact. We know depression is a fact, but it's hard. They cannot take a blood test, as you know, and say, okay, from what we see, these are the medication that you need. There are indications with scanners right now that people with severe depression do not react as the vast majority of people. But even then, it's really the early times of discovering the brain, okay? And probably, I would say 100 years from now, they're going to look back to the society now. And I'm not saying like propaganda and like against, I'm not against like pills, okay? I think they can play a role, okay? But I'm thinking that in 100 years from now, they're gonna look back and they're gonna say, wow, they used to just fill them up with pills, which were interacting with everything, instead of really what's the cause in the brain specifically. So they were numbing their people like nonstop. So it's and it's not our fault. And that's what I want to say. Often, and I talk for myself. I think it's my fault. I think it's when I feel depressed. I think it's that there's some guilt. There's some feelings of guilt coming in because you want to go on with your life. And no matter what you have to do, if you have kids or you don't have kids, you have a job, if you're self-employed or you're looking for a job, no matter where you are on this planet, you feel guilty because you see that you have legs and arms and a body, and this body do not want to follow with your goals in your mind, because there's something between that's blocking it. But yet, you're not crazy. You have your mind. So it's this constant dilemma between, am I responsible at 100% for my lack of getting better, my lack of proactivity, or am I... or is it totally not my fault, and am I just left in this with pills? And, how is it? Where is my responsibility? In all this? I don't know. But that's how I feel when I go through that. And that's the worst, okay? Because you don't need to feel guilty on top of it all. And it's a vicious circle, you know? It goes on and on and on and on. And people don't get what you're going through. So I'm saying, first thing that I want to say is don't, if you feel any guilt, stop or try as best as you can to stop feeling guilty and it's your fault and you're not proactive enough to get out of this problem because you are sick, okay? It's a sickness. We should see it as a sickness. So we've seen these advertisements, you know, of people that are in hospital with a broken leg, and that's what the advertisement I remember I've seen. Like, it was a good one. It was about depression, and people were, you know, the family would visit the father of the family with it. He had an accident, and you know, he had broken limbs, and people were so like, oh, this is, please take your time, get better. And then you would see the same father and with people just kind of thinking and rolling eyes, you know, like he's such a loser, you know. But yeah, it's not written on your forehead, and it's, of course, you don't, unless you really reach bottom, you go to the hospital, but usually you're in your bed or just always in your house. So people also judge, or if they don't judge that much, you really feel that they're judging you. And if they're not judging you, you judge yourself, because it's, when you look in the mirror, you see nothing apparent that should stop you. So that's what's helping me right now. When I have a day, which is a hard day, and I feel like, okay, I could have done so much more, but I had these episode of either stress, anxiety, or depression, or the medication had to be adjusted and it's not working fine. Well, I always know that, you know, I have to remember and remind myself that it's not my fault. Okay? It's not your fault. And if you need to repeat that and to tell that to yourself 1,000 times today, do it. Write it. It's not my fault. If you get hit by a truck and then you have to recover and it takes time, it's not your fault. And it's obvious. Now, it is also obvious about depression. So it's not your fault. You're going through that. You may have, you know, we always regret. We always can look back and say, if I had done this, or, you know, maybe I would have. You cannot dwell on these thoughts. It is just like, it's not going to help you. What's helping you is yourself at the present time. If there's only one little thing you want to do today, is this task. It's not my fault. And as long as you're going to think that it's your fault, your self-esteem is going to be so down that whatever a psychologist or a therapist would suggest in terms of proactive steps, you cannot even start, because your self-esteem is so low that you don't even believe that you'll be able to do it, because it's your fault. That's what you think. There's some kind, there's a way that it's your fault. Stop thinking that. And that's all I have to say for today. But that's as much as you can. Put as much effort as you can and write it. And if you feel like a loser, if you feel like you've not, and you know, Sorry, I'm French. I look for my words all the time. But if you feel like you've not accomplished the life that you should have, or according to your family, according to your friends, according to yourself, the blueprint is not what's matching the reality, you're gonna feel guilty and stop feeling guilty and start to believe that it's just like someone recovering in a hospital. Some people, it can take a few weeks, but if you have a different accident, it can take a few months or years. Okay? So everybody is different, but we have this in common. It's not your fault. And I hope that this little thought helps you today. And I'm going to do other videos with more, these are not even tools yet. They're just opinions. But I can tell you, it helps when you finally get this burden off your shoulder that you're going through something that's not your fault. At least you know. But it does not stop there. It starts there. The recovery does not stop at saying it's not your fault. It does not stop there. If you're stuck at saying it's not your fault for 2-3 years, of course, there are things that we have to focus on. But for today, or at least even for 1 week, every day, tell yourself it's not my fault. It's not about, and this is really different. People are always told, like, don't get and don't fall into the victim, It's always like it's always, it's an easy way out, like take your responsibility. Again, when you're dealing with people and with depression, it is really different. It has nothing to do with how proactive they want or they can be. It has to start with they're going through something today right now that's not their fault. Now they can at least and I say as we, because I'm counting myself into that, I still have to tell that to myself when I go through hard times. So if you have questions, you can email me. And I wish you a great day, a great week. And I hope that maybe someone out there could listen to that and said, well, you're right. Finally, I realized that I'm not responsible for depression right now. Okay. Next time. Bye-bye.